Okay, this is the College Prep English class at EIE on May the 19th. And let me share the screen. And we're off and going. A lot of things to look at today. I haven't given you an enormous amount of listening and reading in hopes that that might free you up a little bit to do some more writing. And so I'm happy about what did come in with the writing, and let's look at that. But again, one of the big things I have to emphasize is you get better at it. It's something that takes practice, and you really have to start practicing and just keep on doing it. I'm assuming, of course, that if you bring it in here when you're practicing it and we go over it and look at the problems with it and try to improve it, that will accelerate the improvement curve. Okay, so let's just look at the agenda, and then we'll go ahead and play with those things. There's some other things I do want to introduce you to here, and maybe even watch a video, a short video. Okay, the college admissions essays fall into specific categories, as you have seen in reading the collections of successful essays. They tend to be in response to a prompt, although these prompts are very broad. Things like, if there is something that defines you, we want you to write about it. Okay, that leaves it open to do whatever you want, pretty much. And then other things like coming to America, applying to college, death and dying, family, off-beat, and other essays. Well, who knows what that might be. Sports and activities, well, I suppose I should think that it'd be hard to cover really successfully your attitudes towards learning and your capabilities and your background if you're talking about sports. Maybe it can be done. Anyway, the Princeton Review also came up with another list here, and I thought I'd throw both of these at everyone in hopes that they would inspire. A background or story that is so central to their identity that they believe their application would be incomplete without it. Okay, that's probably a good one to aim at because you can do whatever you want with it. Anyway, I just threw those out. We've got the one that I wrote as an example, which I don't guarantee would get anybody into a college, but I think it would certainly raise the eyebrows of anybody reading them. And that's one of the things you want to do, is raise the eyebrows. Did you read the introduction by Alan Bennett? That was part of the assignment for last week. Okay, well, you didn't get to it either? Okay, let me just go down there. Of course, I've got all of these importunings, try to get you to write something. Let's see, where are we here? Alan Bennett on preparing for college entrance essays and exams. You didn't have a chance to look at that. Yeah. It's an introduction to his play, The History Boys, which, as I explained, I'm not going to recommend due to strong language and sexual themes. It, however, is a fascinating thing and covers some very interesting academic material there. You've got two teachers. One is focusing on broad spectrum, understanding culture and history and everything. And the other one is, how do you write a paper that catches the eye? How do you write a paper that gets you into the top universities? And he looks through their papers and he said, boring, boring. Yes, but it's good. his response is, yes, the scholarship is staggering, but it's boring. Think about the person reading this, reading hundreds of them. What's going to stand out? And indeed, this is something we want to be able to incorporate into our papers. The one I started with in the paper I put together there, do you remember what it was? This question, okay, who am I? And you've got this list that just seems absolutely impossible. And that, I'm assuming, is something that's likely to catch somebody's eye. Is there such a person who was all of these different things? You see what I'm, just one thought. There are many other ways to approach it. Anyway, read that for next time, if you would. Okay, let's just go on and take a look at the papers that have been handed in. This class attendance is rather slipshod and slovenly, isn't it?
What was it the last 2 weeks?
It tended to be a subset. Last week was 4 of you here last week, right? Okay, so you were the only one missing last week.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go over again. Okay, that's Azariah's. Let's go ahead and look at yours. Notice that I was so fascinated by your mention of peat cutting. It's something I've seen. I've never done it, but I've seen it on television, and it's a very scientific approach they have with these sort of angular spades that cut the peat off in these little chunks. And you realize that to keep a fire going takes about 3 of those an hour. That's an awful lot to keep going all the time. Okay, my points here were very good effort, one project, revise and expand for further credit. We've included some excellent points, words, and examples. This is a great start, but you'll find that your work continues to get better with practice. This is really very good for a first essay of this type, which is great, but as I said, they do improve. Bowdlerization, wonderful word. Now, if you use a word like that, you have to make sure that the whole level of the rest of your paper comes up to that level so that it doesn't look just thoroughly out of place. It's exactly the right word for so much that takes place in public school. What does bowdlerization mean?
Dumbing down?
Part of it is dumbing down. It's also a very often attempt to leave out objectionable material. To expurgate is another word for it. And you'll find this is certainly the case in history books and so forth. Whenever something is just a little too controversial or a little bit inappropriate, it's left out. Mm-hmm. And I have to admit that we do the same things here. I can't give you the history boys. I have to bowdlerize the contents of class. You see what I mean? But indeed, it hurts. I'm a great believer in open libraries. Okay, to gift. You used the word to gift with a direct object. And there are ways that you could actually justify having it have an indirect object without a preposition. I was gifted with the following advantages. You could say, or he gifted me with the following advantages. That could be theoretically done, but only if you've got an indirect object. Normally, you use a verbal phrase with to gift with something, or in some cases, gifted to someone, but you've got to have that preposition to use one of those phrases. So that one didn't work very well. We'll look at it down Note a number of suggestion improvements. Look up word usages to determine whether they improve your semantic content. We'll discuss them. I've made a number of suggestions with vocabulary, but as I always find when I'm doing this, for example, for editing for somebody who wants to go into print, I have to ask, okay, have I corrupted the meaning? Have I made it mean something different than you intended? And so you always have to be careful with that. Okay, unique. This single word, well, let's put it in quotes so we know we're talking about a word in quotes. Okay, I have had a unique educational experience. Okay, we don't need that S on the end that I put there. I don't know why I put it there. Ignore that. Okay. It is only by homeschooling that I have been able to learn such a wealth of knowledge. This is pleonastic. It is redundant to say to learn knowledge. If you acquire knowledge, you are learning. But to learn knowledge is just laying it on a little too thick. Does that make sense? You understand? So I suggested gain knowledge instead of learn knowledge. Okay. Without authorization or limitation. Excellent. It would be nice if true. But again, we are working within certain constraints. Because of this uncommon form of learning, my education has been custom tailored towards me, or custom tailored to me, I think would probably be best, or to my interests, talents, abilities, predilections. Okay, very nice. And here you've got a good list. As opposed to viable life skills such as time management, public speaking, and volunteerism. The three objects strung together. 3 is the best number for that sort of thing. Okay, it was during a practice session for my club soccer team when. Okay, during when does work, but with the during, we've already implied duration, that we're talking about time, so we don't need to repeat it. Again, that's a matter of not saying something more often than necessary. That I realized how vital my own school experience has been. Actually, here I would change this has to a had. I didn't think of it at the time, but think about it. This is in past tense. It was during this practice session that I realized just how vital my homeschool experience had been. Because when you're talking in the past tense about something that takes place before that, then put it in the past perfect. This isn't really bad because the has implies that it's still happening all the way up to the present. But because it happened before the past tense narrative, we want to put it in past. Okay, being in club soccer all throughout my high school and middle career has taught me, that's a typo, I think, many things on and off the field. One of which, notice that if you don't do it the way I suggested there, linking it together as a single sentence, this is a fragment. You can't make a sentence out of one of which is time management. You see what I mean? Playing soccer, the most organized. Yeah, this isn't really wrong when you say I can leave even the most organized stressed for time. I just thought it was a little clearer to say organized student. Okay, comma there, paragraph here, look better. Okay, comma. Able to incorporating something into sounds better to me than incorporating it in. High school is a single word. And this one, the thing is, you can take any verb and make it into two, well, you can make it into at least one adjective. If it's a transitive verb, you can make it into 2. And what you have done is used the wrong one. Please is the verb. So you can say pleasing, That's something that pleases something else. Or pleased, that is someone who has been pleased by something. So you can take that verb and make it into two adjectives, but you wanted the other one. My time management skill is what left my head soccer coach. Oh, where are we here? Oh no, here we are. Here we are. We're down here. I was fully equipped to. I'm sorry. I looked at that one. The one I was looking for was this one. Rigorous classes that would otherwise have left me scrambling for time, not scrambled for time. Scrambled is what happens to an egg. Okay. And indeed, I'm sorry, I was jumping to a conclusion when I talked about the adjectival form of verbs, because indeed, this is a verb form that we're using here rather than the adjectival form. But both scrambled is past tense, scrambling is present progressive. Okay, has gifted me. That didn't work. Bestowed upon me really sounds much better. And so that's why I gave you that comment about gifted. When you want to find out how a word is used, look for it in StringNet. That's one of the resources I gave you. Or just Google the exact phrase with quotes around it. You'll find that somebody out there has used it. Then look at the count. And if it's only 5 people, chances are they got it wrong. If it's 10,000, then chances are it's pretty acceptable. You see what I mean? Almost anything you quote and Google, you'll find somebody's done it. But most of the time, if it's just a few, they haven't got it right. Okay. Opportunity and knowledge not obtainable by any other means. I reminisce about cutting peat. I just suggested I can reminisce. And you do need the about, though. You can't say, I reminisce cutting peat. I reminisce about, I think works better there. And that's such a wonderful thing. So many kids have difficulty thinking, what have I done of any great significance? And if you sit down and ask them questions, you discover you've done all kinds of wonderful things you can talk about. This is certainly a great example of that. Okay. Right, it's because, yeah, you don't need to capitalize it here. That's all that was all about. Through extracurricular programs such as people-to-people student ambassador program, we've got to have a "the" there. This I'm going to discuss a little bit here. The presence or absence of an article is a clear shibboleth. What does the word shibboleth mean? Okay, it was on the list of vocabulary terms that came in this week. Who handed it in?
I think that was me.
I thought so. I thought you would know it.
I'd have to check again.
Okay, what is a shibboleth? But let me throw it at you. It originally, this is sort of a strange. Originally, it's an Old Testament reference. Did you find that?
Was it referring to like the Romans or something?
Well, it was a battle with the Ephraim's in the book of Judges, chapter 12, I believe. They talk about this battle having ended. The Ephraim's were defeated, and their army wanted to get back across the river. And as a result of the fact that they could not pronounce the word shibboleth correctly, 40,000 of them were killed, because that was used as a way to determine whether they were indeed Ephraim's or not. And so what it is some sort of a distinctive characteristic that defines a person, generally by regional background. But the word has grown to mean a number of things. A shibboleth is any characteristic. It doesn't have to be language. It doesn't have to be pronunciation or something like that. but something that defines one. The absence of articles when they are called for and the presence of them when they're not is one of the things that clearly defines one as a non-native speaker of English. I just was reading a book on the Finnish educational system. It's a scholarly book written by a Finn, and you can tell that because this shibboleth keeps on popping up in there. And it's very clear that this was not ever edited by a native English speaker who really understood the language. This person understood the language so well, and in so many ways, so much better than American academics do. But you can see through this shibboleth what their background is.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry.
Okay.
Okay, obligatory, it works. Requisite, I thought was better. Required. Okay, very nicely done. And my suggestion is simply let's see more of it. Oh, that is such a nice idea. How long did you spend doing that?
An hour or two.
Uh-huh. Did you ever get a chance to see a peat fire burning?
No.
You'll find there are several videos on YouTube where you can just go and it shows you a picture of a peat fire burning. You just run it on your TV. Okay. Any questions on that? In order to improve this, it should be a little bit bigger, more examples perhaps, but the topic you've chosen, which is very general really, does allow you to add a number of extra paragraphs in between there about other experiences and other skills that you've developed and other advantages of homeschooling that could be added in there. And perhaps even some big hook at the beginning that that catches the reader. Okay, that's Brian. We'll save that, and we've got Nicholas. Okay, yours was the vocabulary list.
Yeah.
That's okay. Well, I'm not sure we should go through these. I'm tempted, though, in a way to do so because I'm not at all sure that these folks
will come next week.
Will come, and we're running out of time.
Yeah.
This
How
is
many
one
more
of-
classes do we have? Just 2?
Well, this is one of the questions I have to ask you. When I ask Martin how many more classes there are, his answer is as many as you want. Okay. Well, that really depends on as many as you want. But then how many of you really are coming to see them? So let's go through this, and we may hit it again if we feel like it. Brian has done a very nice job with this, and he has some problems with lumpy language. I'm not sure how better to put that. The way Terry Eagleton calls it is great chains of unwieldy syntax, which need to be polished up. And it's not something one was necessarily responsible for or could be blamed for, but we live in an environment that's just full of that kind of thing. And that's what gets stuck in your language sense, in your language senses. Okay, let's see here. Because he wrote this, and then I did the commentary on it, and then he revised it. Just this morning. Yesterday afternoon he revised it. So I was assuming he would be coming to look at it. Always read your work aloud. I keep on saying that because I look at something like this, and sometimes I have to conclude that I couldn't read this aloud. It just can't be read aloud. It needs fixing before you can read it aloud without doing damage to your tongue.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, autodidacts. Now, my in contrast to public school. Now, this immediately brings to mind one of the classic errors on SAT exams, which is defined as, I like the writing of Austen more than Dickens. And you see what's wrong with that? I like Austen's books more than Dickens. We're not comparing the works of Austen to the works of Dickens. We're comparing the works of Austen to the author, Dickens. It's a mismatch.
Yeah.
It's apples and oranges.
Mm-hmm.
And this title is the same thing. When we're talking about autodidacts, in contrast to public school, we're comparing a student to a system. Mm-hmm. They don't work. So how would we fix it? We could say the autodidact in contrast to the public school student. Indeed, a public school student is not an autodidact, but we're talking here at least about learners on both sides of the equation. Okay. Okay, let's see. What comes to mind? Well, as each and every individual differs, each and every, of course, is singular. Each and every one of them does, not each and every one of them do. You see what I mean? They all do, but each one does. All is plural and each is singular. So we needed the S there. And here, what exactly the typical student attending public school consists of, I suggested is like, rather than consists of, or is influenced by. That works nicely. You can't talk about a school system running a specific manner, running in a specific manner. That may well be a typo, but it's the kind of thing that reading aloud would catch. Okay, as placed into classes that reach his level of development, I thought appropriate to level of development, just a little better there. And then from then out, one. The problem here is he and one and they tend to get all jumbled up, and you can't just switch from one to another. Once you've started out by saying the individual, we're talking about a single individual in third person. We can refer to that person as he, or less sexist to say he, she, but we can't switch to one after having defined that as a third person noun. You see what I mean? And we certainly can't switch to they because the individual is singular. We can't say they. It's done. It's frequently done to switch into the plural to solve that problem, but it's strictly speaking an error. And you all know what it's called, right?
It's synesis.
Very good, very good. If you know that, you know vastly more than most English teachers, because it's not a commonly used word, but it is exactly the right one.
Yeah.
Okay, here we're talking about classes still move on with the rate of other students in class. I suggested at a pace commensurate with that of other students in class. Again, a matter of making sure we're talking about apples and apples and oranges and oranges. We're not talking about moving on of other students in class, but moving on at a pace commensurate with that. In other words, with the pace of other students. We're comparing one pace to another. This issue happens. Issues don't really happen. If things happen, but issues don't. It feels awkward to me. So this is the case at all public schools and is a common mishap. Mishap isn't quite as good, I think, as mistake, error, flaw, failure. I think one of those would be more appropriate. Uh, okay, that is often brushed off as not significant, not salient, not consequential. I think worked better than not a big deal.
Mhm.
You understand why
Yeah.
I didn't choose that one, right?
It's very slang.
It is slangy. Even if it's not slangy, it's colloquial. It's just not on the level of what you want. So when he did his rewrite, he chose consequential, which I think is just fine. But the problem there is here they're all lined up with a not in front of them because not significant, not salient, not consequential. I could make those parallel. But if you're going to say not consequential, it sounds better to say inconsequential. Same thing with significant, insignificant. Salient doesn't have one of those. So, okay. Or not even recognized. And so I suggested there in some cases whose existence is not even acknowledged. Recognized is fine, but acknowledged is just a little tighter meaning. Okay. However, the problem standing, I'm not really sure what he meant by that. And this is one of those cases where I think putting my words in might actually be changing the original meaning, which I don't want to do. But I said the perennial problem. In other words, the problem that reoccurs, that comes back all the time. It's not sounded better to me. I don't understand this part here, and that I didn't even want to try to guess at it at lower level. And in general, are not absorbing the material taught due to actions of teachers during the duration of oppositely benefiting the students. Okay, you see that it just doesn't quite. And of course, you never want to do anything during the duration. Do you see why? It's the same word. And so he fixed all of these, or most of them nicely, although there's more that I would like to have gone through with him. Okay, this is good. The case with an autodidactic student following a particular academic regimen is a completely different story. Good. And become inspired by the actions and interests he, she uniquely possesses, rather than one has. Because we've already established the subject is the student. We can't switch to one here. We have to say he or she. You see what I mean? You can't switch those around. Okay, and then here again, in which he, she excels, and indeed may be hypothetically wired to surpass others. Anyway, I did a fair amount of twiddling with it here. Thus giving an individual a significant advantage over any other student, as they have, I thought was better to say, make it clear, the autodidact has the power to cover and learn any subject he, she pleases to gain knowledge from. You don't really gain knowledge from a subject as much as you gain knowledge of a subject. Okay. Let's just look at this. As the student obtains more and more insight, knowledge, and overall superior education, that one just didn't fit well. I thought overall superior mastery or grasp of the subject covered. You don't gain an overall superior education of the subjects covered. It's fitting in your brain. Exactly. Very good. Once the inspiration is in beneficial effect, okay, you see that strays around standard standard convention, has its beneficial effect, really works much better. And classroom, a single word. And then when you say not only for the ability, what for not only the ability, I think is a little bit clearer there, and then also to benefit the future for the long run. Is the future what we're trying to benefit? The future may not even contain humans.
Well, we're trying to benefit humanity.
I suspect.
Students.
Yeah. Anyway, he went on to do a nice rewrite of it, and this is great. This is very good practice to go through and incorporate those things. There's still some things in the rewrite that I think could be improved upon, but now that you could see it well constructed, it does follow. Shall we wait on this one till next time, or we've got a few other little things to look at this week?
I don't mind either way.
Does this one interest you folks? I'm sure you've read it, and I'm sure you would have posted comments and suggestions to its author had you had time.
Yes.
But did you have any thoughts on this one at all? Okay. It's a nice idea. Very, very simple, just simply talking about a particular exercise, and there's some comment that I feel like making on it, but I think maybe we'll save that and we can cover it next time. All right. This is the one that I assigned to you to read, and I want to make sure that you're getting enough reading. This is well written. Alan Bennett does a wonderful job. Of course, this is an introduction to a play, but the introduction is perfectly reasonable. The play itself just has things in it that I might get in trouble for having assigned to you. But read through it. It's really rather nice. It talks about his experience taking these exams, how he prepared for these exams, how he managed to get through them comfortably. And we're talking probably about the most intense set of college admissions exams in the world, trying to get into Oxford and Cambridge. He decided to go to Cambridge first, but then he wanted to take the scholarship, the Oxford scholarship exam too, and did take it. And I think he ended up going to Oxford. He did end up going to Oxford and finishing there and doing there. Read it. It's just pleasant. It's not full of a great deal of wonderful language. It's competent language. Okay, and here is your vocabulary list. And this is good. I can't help, whenever I look at a vocabulary list, wondering what is it you've been reading that inspired all of these. But it looks as though you've been collecting these for quite a while from a number of sources.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I believe all of these are in the textbook, but I don't know whether you have been drawing on it or not. I don't remember Shibboleth being in the textbook.
A lot of these are from past classes. I would write it down in my notes.
Good for you.
And I just got around to posting it last night. So a couple of those are from classes before. Excellent,
excellent. And they're very good. And these are important things too. The problem is if I see something like this with a definition in a book, it's very hard, I find, to jump from that into active vocabulary and knowing how to use it correctly. I find I sort of need to hear somebody use it in order to get a feel for it. Yeah, you can use that in a sentence and people will understand you. And so I've seen words like, cupidity and prolixity and teleology especially. And I wouldn't be comfortable just jumping in and using them until I heard Terry Eagleton use teleology.
Yeah.
And it's yeah, that's right. And of course, his definition was a little bit different here. He described teleology as the characteristic of something having value in and of itself, regardless of its origin. And that his definition, I really rather like a little bit here. Okay, Cupidity, indeed. Cupidity, uh, that's something you'd have to use in rather rarefied circumstances, where it's the people around you either have a really sound grasp of the language, or you don't mind going over their heads.
Yeah.
I think rapacity, I'm not sure which one of these is more obscure than the other. I use rapacity much more commonly than cupidity, but rapacious or rapacity is a good word to have around. It's a graspy, grasping and greedy, basically. Okay, estivation. Estivation is the less common. What is hibernation?
Basically, commonly described as what bears do during the winter.
Well, we could describe it as what bears do, but it's better to describe what bears do as hibernation.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, indeed. Bears hibernate during the winter, as do many other things. But there are some animals that go dormant during the summer. And that's called estivation when it happens. And usually that's if it's a dry period and their pond dries up, there are frogs that manage to coat themselves in a layer of slime and just go dormant for the whole summer, and then they wake up again once the rains come. Another set of interesting words are, what does nocturnal mean?
Awake at night only.
Very good. What about diurnal?
Awake in the day only.
Exactly. It's one of them is very often more common than the other one. How about crepuscular?
Not sure.
Awake mornings and evenings only, not day and not night. Crepuscular, remember that. Okay, shibboleth, yes, indeed, we talked about that. Perfidy, one of the reasons I remember that word so well is it's used in Mozart's Marriage of Figaro. In Italian. The Count Almaviva screams out perfidy, which of course means exactly the same thing. It's drawn straight from the Latin into both languages, and indeed it's deceit or treachery. Okay, lenity. It's a slightly higher level of leniency, and you've come across leniency. But just remember next time when you're thinking about talking about leniency, make it lenity and get your parents to raise their eyebrow a little bit and ask where it came from. Okay, minatory. I used that a while ago, as I recall, in that review I gave of that cataract surgeon's office. Talked about minatory signs being put up, and indeed something that's reprimanding in a way, but also veiling of a hidden threat of some sort. And admonitory is similar, and admonition would be some sort of directive telling you what should or should not be done. Not necessarily with a threat behind it, but it would be there. Prolixity. Prolixity is a wonderful word. Fecundity, if you'd like, or there's so many wonderful words to describe consisting of too many words, not necessarily, but consisting very often of language which is perhaps a little more elaborate than it needs to be. But that doesn't mean it isn't beautiful to listen to. Prolixity. Okay, ascetic, you got all of that. Teleology we talked about. And parsimony. Indeed, I think that this is sort of Scroogeism. You know Ebenezer Scrooge. Parsimonious, unwilling to spend money. Frugality, similarly, but without the negative connotation. Penury and impecunious are two other words for essentially poverty-stricken. So I just thought to throw those in there for you to think about. But penury, used beautifully by Thomas Gray in his Elegy in a Country Churchyard, chill penury froze the genial current of their soul. Okay, impecunious. Only place I've ever come across that was in Gilbert and Sullivan. Anyway, nice set of words. Keep doing that sort of thing. And I'm sure you've come across all kinds of words that you could be throwing in there. And it doesn't take long. Put them in a list like this. Look at the list periodically. Okay. Okay, I want to take us into that one, but let's go back to our agenda first. I have a feeling, did I go into the agenda unintentionally here? Where is my agenda? Okay, I think I have. I've definitely gone into that thing. All right, I'm going to have to find my agenda again. It seems to have gone missing. It's okay. 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 Lots of enjoyments here to write. Number of other resources here to look at. These are libgen.io is the one that stopped working. I'm not sure what state the others are in. The IP address here is the one that you can rely on, as far as I can tell, for reaching Library Genesis, which I have been enjoying immensely. And it's a library that just contains all kinds of things you wouldn't expect a library to contain, including all of the things you would hope that it would contain. Mm-hmm. Not all. There are things I've looked for that aren't there. But it's, in a way, it's just such a wonderful concept. It's like saying, we have a school library, and the school library has anything, and you can take it out, and it's got an infinite number of every volume there, so the whole class can take it out at once. It's just a wonderful thing. StringNet, this was the one I was mentioning for finding collocations that work, idiomatic collocations that are simply so common in the language that you want to use them rather than fumble around with something that isn't really a standard. Okay, and then the aspects of that you want to incorporate into your admissions essays. And then the reading assignment here, which I'm sure you would have read. And the poetry here, which I was inspired by something that came up in class last week. I think it was Brian's paper on essentially perfidious practice of other people and people who talk behind one's back and belittle one or use deprecatory or pejorative language. I'm taking notes here. Okay, that's all right. Or vituperative is another nice one to put in that list. Okay, but the question is, how much should that bother one? Did you all read this?
No.
We did go through it last week in class. Actually, what we did was, I think we had an audio version of it that we listened to. I don't know that we need to look at it again, though. Of course, it's a brilliant piece of work and deserving of further study, but this is really a poetry class, or at least not specifically a poetry class. But tell me, have you figured out what its meter is, what its structure is? Okay. If you can keep your head all about you, how many emphasized syllables are in that line?
Five.
Exactly. You're absolutely right. And what does that make it?
And I remember iambic, but that's not the right one.
The word you're looking for is the one that comes right after iambic. Pentameter.
Pentameter. Okay.
Yeah, you're quite right. It is iambic.
Mm-hmm.
If you can keep your head all about you, each one of those is an iamb. And there are 5 of them in the line, so it's iambic pentameter. Who else writes an iambic pentameter?
Was it Shakespeare?
Exactly. My only love spoke, my only hate, too early seen unknown and known too late. Prodigious birth of love, it is to me that I must love a loathed enemy. Where would that come from? Think about that last couplet. Prodigious birth of love, it is to me that I must love a loathed enemy.
Romeo and Juliet.
Got it. Has to be, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, you'll find that iambic pentameter is just what Shakespeare tends to fall into comfortably. Not always. But. Okay, this one I thought it might be worthy of some discussion, but the question is it what we would like to fill our time with? There are other things that I'd like to suggest, perhaps.
What other
You've
stuff?
read this, right?
No, I haven't.
Oh. Azariah, why don't you tell us all about it?
I haven't read it.
It's really long, otherwise I would feel like reading it because it's so very clever. Let's just start at the beginning.
Okay.
A little bit at the beginning. The most important thing we've learned, so far as children are concerned, is never, never let them near your television set. Or better still, just don't install the idiotic thing at all. In almost every house we've been, we've watched them gaping at the screen. They loll and slop and lounge about and stare until their eyes pop out. Last week in someone's place, we saw a dozen eyeballs on the floor. Okay, you've got the theme. It's very cleverly done. It's not iambic pentameter, is it?
No.
It's iambic tetrameter, four to the line. But it's very clever, and Dahl has put this together. What altogether is he trying to say here?
That TV is absorbing us.
Absorbing? Perhaps it's deleterious. Perhaps it's damaging. Mm-hmm. Certainly it's suffocating. Certainly it's stifling and there's a word that I want and it's not there. I will find it. But his contention, I think, is ill-conceived. And you can probably guess what I'm basing that on. It's perfectly reasonable in a world, say, 75 years ago and 50 years ago to say, this is absolutely true. Well, 50 years ago, 50 years ago is about right. That would be 15 years after televisions came in. And you had all of about 5 channels, and they were filled with lots of junk. It was a time of Huckleberry Hound and Yogi Bear and that sort of thing. And yeah, it's pretty much junk. There's no question. Most of what comes out is junk. The vast bulk of what comes out on television is junk. The vast amount of what comes out on paper is also junk. It's not the medium that's at fault. Mm-hmm. And of course, back then, the only source of really good material was books, because you couldn't find books in any other form. You couldn't find history and philosophy and science and the arts on television. They weren't there. And you could go into the library and find such things if you searched for them. After you went through all of the detritus and trash that comes out in book forms, you can find the good stuff as well. Now, of course, we live in a different world. Watching something on a screen, you can choose anything you like to watch on a screen. I haven't done it. I keep on telling myself I should write a few more couplets to add to this one about how ballet loses its charm on the printed page, as does Shakespeare, as do the art songs of Schubert. You see what I mean? Mm-hmm. There's so many things that cannot be conveyed with words on a page, and even words on a page, if that's their original form, come to life when read by a master who understands those words and can recite them well. So my contention is this is a somewhat atavistic, ancient atavism. Maybe you want to put that one down. It actually comes from scientific terminology that refers to a throwback in the development of a species. Suddenly you find a characteristic coming through in a modern birth of an animal or something that seems to have died out in previous generations, but suddenly reappears. So in other words, atavism is a tendency to go backwards in time, to be thrown back into a previous state. And I feel in a way that's what Dahl is talking about here. Okay, language immersion. I believe I gave you this one the previous week, this discussion of the singularity by Tyson and Kurzweil. Did you watch that one?
Yeah.
Great. Now, Kurzweil is an interesting character. It took me a little while to realize Kurzweil. I know I worked at a Kurzweil machine when I was in the college. It was a machine for scanning books. You could actually put a book down and it would scan and recognize the characters in the book and then read it for blind students, for example. They have this Kurzweil machine. It's much more sophisticated than that now. Your phone can do that now. But this was a great big thing. And it was a Kurzweil machine. He has his name on a number of things. I suddenly realized his name is on our keyboard over there. That's a Kurzweil keyboard. So an interesting character with a lot of background. He's written a lot of books, and you'll find them all out there on Library Genesis if you're interested. Okay, and then we're off to older assignments. Okay, I wanted to show you something else here, though I'm happy to defer to other subjects that you feel you're more interested in and for which you have this didactic fervor that you need to, that impels you to go off and learn something interesting and new. Share it if you have one.
Yes. I'm still thinking about writing that admission essay. I just haven't gotten around to because I haven't been home for the past week.
Understood. But,
so I should be turning that one in next week.
Okay, good. As I say, we are running out of time. The rest of of the school here is ending the end of May. I don't mind going on at least one class in June to give everybody a chance to finish this kind of thing, but let's aim at that. This I want to assign to this week. I haven't actually put it in the assignments yet, but I will. And it's an essay and a video. They come from different sources, but I thought we might like to go ahead and watch the video.
Okay.
This is fairly short, and it's part of a video called Where Shall We Invade Next? And it's a very strange premise, one in which it's a Michael Moore film. You may not think much of him, and certainly there are respects in which I find he's the last person that any educated person would want to use in a classroom. He gives the American a bad name. He's hard to look at and even harder to listen to. But he hits some very good things here, and most of the material that you're given is not from him, it's from people he's interviewing. And he goes to a number of countries, mostly European, and looks at the way they do things, from Italy to France and then to Finland here. In France, the episode is all about the food children are given in schools. And you wouldn't believe the difference between what we have in schools here. Well, you folks may not know what goes on in the public schools and on the plates in public schools. But that was really rather an eye-opener. But this one, I'd heard a good deal about the Finnish educational system. And for the most part, I agree with it, except for the fact that it is state-operated and there is no alternative. They don't permit private schools or homeschooling.
Oh.
And that bothers me significantly. On the other hand, their philosophy of public schooling is vastly superior to anything I've seen. Mm-hmm. And they achieve some wonderful results. Let's go ahead and take a look at this and see what you think. We may have to. There's no sound at the beginning here. We may have to pause a little bit and get it to.
So here's what happened. Back in the day, Finland's schools sucked on the level that ours suck on. When they tested the world's kids, both Finland and us were usually about the same, somewhere down the list of nations. But Finland didn't like that. So they tried some new ideas, and in no time, Finland shot to the top of the world. Their students were number one. How did they do that? That was the one question I wanted an answer to, and I went straight to see the enemy's Minister of Education. Before I could say anything, she blurted out their top secret.
They do not have homework.
Wait, so you reduced the homework you've given in school?
Yes. They should have more time to be kids, to be youngsters, to enjoy the life.
So they have no homework. What if all they want to do is climb a tree?
They can climb a tree. They can climb a tree, then they learn how to climb a tree. But they'll end up, while climbing a tree, probably finding out about different insects, and they can come to the school next day and tell me about what they found.
Compared to the older kids, how many hours a day do the younger ones go to school?
One day is 3 hours. Tuesdays 4 hours. It varies. It's 20 hours a week.
So they're, oh man. Now, does this 3 or 4 hours at school include the lunch hour?
Yes.
How are they learning anything? How are you getting anything done?
Your brain has to relax every now and then. If you just constantly work, then you stop learning. And there's no use of doing that for a long period of time.
Finland students have the shortest school days and the shortest school years in the entire Western world. They do better by going to school less.
Here, it's so student-centered that when we had to redo our playground, they had the architects come in and talk to the kids.
Were they listening to?
Yes, yes, there are things on our playgrounds that the students really wanted.
We try to teach them to be happy person, to be respect others and respect yourself.
You're concerned with their happiness.
Oh yeah,
What the hell do you teach?
I teach math.
So the math teacher says the first thing out of your mouth of what you want these students to get out of school was to be happy, to have a happy life.
Yep.
You're the math teacher.
Yeah.
When do they have their time to play and socialize with their friends and grow as human beings? Because there's so much more life around than just school.
You want them to play,
I want children to play.
and that was the principle.
Okay, there actually is a good deal more of these horrible ads on this thing.
Mm-hmm.
There's actually more to it than that, but that hits the major point.
Yeah.
What did you think of it?
That's pretty crazy how different their school system is, and I definitely think we would do better if we implemented a lot of what they're doing.
How much time do you spend a week in classes?
It's pretty much from like 7 to 5-ish, 7 to 6.
You mean every day, 7 in the morning till 5?
I don't actually go to classes, but I'm doing work from 7 to 5.
Do you think that's excessive?
A little, probably.
Are you aware? You know who John Taylor Gatto is, right? I've given you an assignment reading some of his material. He's one of the grandmasters of homeschooling in this country. And he's come up with a lot of good things and written some good books. But his contention is that the required knowledge that students are expected to acquire and obtain over K through 12 could be assimilated, could be acquired in 100 hours if you have a motivated student.
Wow.
And you think about that for a moment. How many of your years are being wasted going through the motions of something that's not really going at a pace that it could go at, and also not inspiring you to want more? Read the commentary around this one. The commentary isn't on the video specifically. I threw the video in afterwards. But this is the 13 Secrets to Finland's Success, written by an American educator who went there. Incidentally, do you remember who Fei-Ching Chen is? You have read a paper by her about lurking online. It was an academic paper. Remember that one?
Yeah.
Anyway, she went to Finland. And I got a chance to talk with her about what she experienced there. I would like to talk more about that with her, having done a little more research on my own. And Finland is attracting a great deal of attention by doing things this way and by achieving the kind of results that it's achieving. Makes me feel guilty about giving you folks so much homework. On the other hand, I feel I'm not really giving you homework as such. I'm just saying, okay, here are a whole lot more suggestions. I hope you get enthusiastic about them.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want you to run out of things. Just very much like climbing a tree. I'm giving you more trees. At least that's the way I'd like to think about it. But also I need suggestions from you as to what kind of tree you want next. Which I don't always get a lot of responses on that. So, okay, so here's where we stand right now. We've only got, what? It's the 19th. We've certainly got next week, which will be the 26th. And I'm assuming probably we'll have the week after, which will be the first week of June. So we don't have a lot of time left. What would you like to accomplish twixt now and then?
Aside from the academic submission paper, I don't have anything specifically planned.
An abysmal lack of scholarly enthusiasm. I just want to make sure to cover the material. By the way, one thing I feel somewhat neglectful about is I have been assigning chapters from the textbook, but I have not been talking about them very much. If you recall, it does say up here somewhere you should have read through chapter 10. Have you? It actually is a good textbook. I don't go through it step by step every year because, as you know, from my conversations with Dawson, for example, that this is his third year here. I don't cover the same material every year. However, the textbook does cover all of the grammatical points that we discuss when we're going through papers. And so it's nice to have it there so I can refer to it and say, this is where that one is addressed in the book. In the old classroom, it was even nicer because I had the whole textbook up in the classroom. I can't put anything that big into my newer classroom here. So. But that way I could actually link into parts of the textbook from postings. Okay, so the emphasis, I am assuming, is generally appreciated here. Otherwise, let me know how it needs to be changed. I think that your folks would appreciate your writing some more practice admissions essays.
Mm-hmm.
You're not both seniors, are you?
I'm a senior.
You're a senior?
Yes.
And you're also a senior?
Junior.
Junior, okay. You're going to be going to junior college, right?
Yes.
Citrus?
Yes. I'm actually looking into the online one as well, the University of the People.
Good, good. Now, one thing just to mention, because it might end up being useful, one of my, I've had a few students in the past whom I've never met, who have done all of their work online. Last year it was Diana. Actually, she handed in some things this last fall as well. And that was interesting because we were able to define the shibboleths that were dropped by a very intelligent and very lucid and very fecund writer whose first language was Russian. And you can tell certain little things in there. Same things I found, in fact, in the Finnish paper that define one as not being a Native American. Now, there are actually a few of those that can distinguish an American from a Brit. I'll give you a couple. Here's one. They took him to the hospital. That defines one as an American. They took him to hospital. That's the way it would be said in England.
Yeah.
So the presence or absence of articles is not universal among all English-speaking peoples. Some of them exist in one form or another. And okay. Okay, let's see, where are we now? We have 10 minutes to do with what we'd like. Shall we go off onto, there's one thing I've always kept as sort of something fun to play with if we run out of things to do in class.
Yeah.
Let's see if I can find a free rice. If I got it up in here, I'm sure I've told you folks about it.
It's the vocabulary.
Oh, that's right.
Rice
It's in the
thing.
vocabulary, isn't it? There we go. One of the big questions I feel like asking is, I have not been beating you folks over the head saying, you've only got 16 projects in, you need this many for an A.
How many is it for an A? 30?
No, 24.
Oh, 24.
12 per semester.
Okay. The one when I checked, I believe I checked a week ago, I had 20. So I would only need 4 more for A in both or in the whole class.
Right, and I'm sure you can do that. You could do just about anything for the credit. For example, you could come in and recite a poem. You could write a song, write a poem. It doesn't have to be a long one necessarily, but do put some effort into it. At this point, it would be nice if we worked on college admissions material, but anything will work.
Yeah.
On the other hand, my problem is I don't want to be pushing you into doing things. That's much too much like American public school. And rather instead somehow be inspiring. One of the things mentioned in the Scandinavian, in the Finnish school system, there was a bunch of kids working on studying the international court and its and the tribunal of former heads of state. And they were working on this on their own because they were interested in the subject. What a marvelous thing that is. And I mean, you don't need to have homework if you have ideas like that. You can just run with them. How do I get that kind of enthusiasm into you folks? Very difficult. We live in a world in which learning is generally regarded as onerous and distasteful. But it isn't, trust me, it's absolutely one of the most wonderful things in the world. Well, maybe I don't manage to put that across. Okay. That doesn't look like a beginning question, so I'm trying to figure out what level I'm on here. Well, it's put me down to level 1. So let's change the level. Where do you want to start?
I don't really remember the scale anymore. So
It goes from 0 to 60. And anything above 50 is impossible. Anything above 40 is sort of rather theoretical and unuseful.
So 30?
Let's aim at 30. Why isn't it coming up?
Quick question about the grading. If you get 22, is that A minus or what is that?
Yeah, I think we can squeak by with an A minus, because one of the things I'll also do is look at class participation.
Okay.
In that I can look and see how many hours you spent online and how many postings you've done, for example, and that'll all be on the credit on the report card. The difficulty is I'm not sure how all of that works with the new system. I may have to.
Do all our hours from the old site carry over?
Well, that's a good point.
Yeah.
I can't get into the old one anymore. No, I'm afraid they won't, because I don't have that anymore. Now, that's a very good question. How do I get this thing to work? It's not giving me anything.
Okay.
Oh, good grief. It's not going to let me in. Let me change the...
We're at level 4 now.
Why won't it let me change the level? It's been a while since I've been here. There we go. Finally, okay. Let's start at 32. Enumerate. Literally, to put numbers in front of something,
Mhm.
a list, to list things, right? Effusion.
Effusion.
More commonly, you find people being referred to as effusive, which means they tend to gush.
Mm.
Timbre. It is from the French. When you're defining a musical note, there are a number of different parameters that go into it,
Tone.
including the volume and the waveform. The waveform is the tone. Timbre.
Yes.
Malign. Anything starts with M-A-L, you can guess the direction it's going. Maleficent, malignant.
To slander.
Yes, in this case, it is slander, yes. You know it's going to be something negative.
Mhm.
Malediction. You know what a malediction is? Well, the word would be an imprecation. A curse would be a malediction or imprecation. Venule. Not a useful word unless you're pre-med or something. Tiny vein. Mentation. You can guess at that one. It's very akin to a word that's very familiar to you. Mental.
Oh, thought.
Right. Mores.
Got to go out.
Excellent. Rapturous. It's not a raptor, but rapture. You can go into a state of rapture.
Ecstatic.
Right. Anorak. A lot of the words here are obscure in American, but
Mhm.
common elsewhere in the English-speaking
Yeah.
world. This is one of those. And actually, I think that's rather badly defined. An anorak is it's a raincoat, really. More than a parka. Viridescent. Okay. Boy, it's shot us up, I think. I don't think we're in the 30s anymore, are we?
Or third.
34?
Says 31st.
Virid is actually perfectly fine. You don't have to have viridescent. Virid is the same as comes from the same root as verdant.
Which means green, greenish.
Right. Exactly. Cacophony.
Clamor.
Yes, very good. We could. Can you guess what cacography would be?
A lot of people.
Well, think about what is graphy? Something on a surface. Cacography is bad handwriting.
Oh.
Cacography. Do you suffer from cacography? Tell you the truth, I don't know if I do at all. I haven't done anything on anything but a keyboard for years. What? Grit? That's not worth thinking about. Fetter. We talked about that one in this class. Fetters, jives, if you'd like. Gyves is a synonym for it. Manacles, another synonym for it. Shackle, another synonym for it. Aplomb. Are these too difficult? You haven't been playing this enough. This is a lot of fun. Trust me, it's a lot.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, it's not a lot of fun if it's too difficult. Please. He entered the room with aplomb. Okay, and symbiosis. The adjectival form is symbiotic.
Neutral.
Say it again.
Neutralism?
That's a really poor definition, but it's the best they have up there, yeah. A number of animals are symbiotic in the sense that one of them helps the other and it helps. Aphids and ants, for example.
Thank you.
We are running over, are we?
A couple minutes.
Just a couple of minutes. We can make our way up to 40 quickly enough, don't you think? To occlude, to obstruct, especially a vein or something like that. Paltry, trifling. Abstemious, self-denying. Ascetic. That's off of your word. I think abstemious would be a good definition for that.
Yeah.
Levity. Frivolity, risibility, if you like. Addle, confuse, right? Rhizoid, yeah. A rhizome is a root that one uses to plant a plant with. So I'm just guessing, but philately, you do know that one, right? None of you done any stamp collecting?
I have not.
Okay. Carronade. I don't know, but I'm guessing it a warship cannon. It was right. Redress. In this case, compensation is what they're looking for. We're at 39. Expropriate. No, expropriate. Yes, okay. Offal. It's a nice word for a very unpleasant substance.
Inedible waste.
Yeah. Usually it's that which comes off a butcher's table, which isn't used for anything. Okay. Impetuous. Rash. We've made it up to 40.
Cool.
Okay. I know you don't want to quit. I'm sorry, we should have started earlier. Okay, any requests?
No, but I will be submitting my college essay next week.
Okay, please submit it early enough so that I can get a chance to look at it. And if you can submit it really early, you may be able to write 2 of them.
Yeah.
With revisions.
Yeah.
Okay. You've got a really nice one there. You could go ahead and expand upon that one or write a different one, whichever you prefer.
Okay.
Okay?
Cool. Thank you.
Okay, we will see you folks next time, and I'll send you that one thing to read and probably some more things. Assuming, of course, that you would like homework.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Have a good week. Okay, shutting down the class.